إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ونبيه ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. We begin in the name of Allah. All praise and glory be to Allah, and may His finest peace and blessings be upon His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. We praise Allah, trying to praise Him, though we can never praise Him as much as He deserves to be praised. And we turn to Him seeking His help in praising Him and in worshipping Him, and seeking His forgiveness for our falter in that, and seeking His protection from the evil whispers within us and the awful consequences of our misdeeds. For whomever Allah Azza wa Jal guides, no one can lead astray, and whomever Allah leaves astray without guidance, none can provide guidance for such a person. And we testify that no one is worthy of our worship and our devotion, our love and our obedience and our surrender but Allah and Allah alone. And that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was certainly His Prophet and His servant and His messenger. O you who have believed, have the taqwa of Allah, remain mindful of Him, keep your duty to Him in the manner that He deserves, and do not die except in a state of complete and total surrender to Allah, a state of Islam. And to begin, this is our seventh and last stop with those special seven that Allah Azza wa Jal promised His shade in the mayhem and in the heat of the Day of Judgment, when none will have shade except those whom He provides shade for. He said alayhi salatu wassalam, Imamun adil, it will be a just leader, whoever has that quality. وَشَابٌ نَشَأَ فِي عِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ, and a young person that grows up in devotion to their Lord, in worship to their Lord. He said, وَرَجُلٌ قَلْبُهُ مُعَلَّقٌ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ, and a man whose heart hangs in the masjid. وَرَجُلَانِ تَحَابَّا فِي اللَّهِ اجْتَمَعَا عَلَيْهِ وَتَفَرَّقَا عَلَيْهِ, and two that love one another for the sake of Allah, they come together for Allah and they go their separate ways for Allah. وَرَجُلٌ دَعَتْهُ امْرَأَةٌ ذَاتُ مَنْصِبٍ وَجَمَالٍ فَقَالَ إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهِ, and a man who was invited by a woman of status, of repute and of beauty, and he said, no, I fear Allah. And the sixth, he said, وَرَجُلٌ تَصَدَّقَ بِصَدَقَةٍ فَأَخْفَاهَا حَتَّى لَا تَعْلَمَ يَمِينُهُ شِمَالُهُ مَا تُنْفِقُ يَمِينُهُ, and a man that gives in charity in secret, to the point that his left does not know what his right hand gave. And today our final stop is with the seventh of these categories. He said alayhi salatu wassalam, وَرَجُلٌ ذَكَرَ اللَّهَ خَالِيًا فَفَاضَتْ عَيْنَاهُ, and a man, and again the element here is the quality, not the gender, and a man meaning a person that remembered Allah or mentioned Allah khaliyan, alone, فَفَاضَتْ عَيْنَاهُ, and so as a result of that his two eyes overflowed with tears. First of all, what does it mean he remembered Allah alone? The other narrations mentioned ذَكَرَ اللَّهَ فِي خَلَاء, he mentions Allah while alone, meaning he remembers Allah in private. He mentioned Allah in private and it caused his eyes to overflow with tears. And some of the scholars say the message here is that he does so in a manner that has completely no pretend behind it, a matter that's most in a situation, a circumstance that's most distant from showing off. You're alone, there's no one there to show your act to, and so it really means a person who's thinking about Allah and none but Allah when they shed those tears. And so this can even be extended to people that remember Allah alone, not meaning while they're alone. That's the original meaning. But also someone who remembers Allah, meaning only Allah, even if they're in public, even if they're in a gathering, even if they're in a lecture, even if they're in prayer, with people around them. But the issue here is that what is causing them to tear is nothing but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a rank that Allah Azza wa Jal chose for His prophets and commanded the people to be nothing but this, and warned the people from becoming distant from this quality. Some would say that Nuh alayhi salam was named Nuh because he was nawah. He was always whimpering, always grieving, always choked up when he thought of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Niyaha, it means crying. It means crying with a sound. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ forbid us from performing niyaha over the deceased, because that could become wailing at times. That would be objecting to Allah's qadr. But when a person is whimpering and they can't control themselves out of genuine, proper, appropriate reasons, this was of the qualities of the prophets. It is also said that Zakaria alayhi salam, or his son Yahya ibn Zakaria, they used to have trails of tears that marked in their cheeks from how frequently their tears would flow. And this was actually reported about a number of the Sahaba radwanullahi alayhim as well. And Allah Azza wa Jal, we said, made this for the prophets, and then He threatened those that are not like this. And He said in the Quran, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْقَاسِيَةِ قُلُوبُهُم مِّن ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Woe to the one whose heart doesn't melt, whose heart is too hard when it comes to the remembrance of Allah, concerning the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal. And elsewhere in the Quran He said, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُم. The believers are nothing less. It's as if it's required of you. It's nothing less than those that when Allah is remembered, the same wording in the hadith, their hearts tremble. And in other ayat, Allah Azza wa Jal says, and when the verses of Ar-Rahman are recited upon them, which is remembrance. The Quran is dhikr. هَذَا dhikr, Allah says. This is a dhikr, this is a remembrance. He says, when the verses of the Most Merciful are recited to them, خَرُّوا سُجَّدًا وَبُكِيًّا. They fall in submission, prostrating to Allah and weeping before Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our Prophet ﷺ, he gave glad tidings to those who work for that station and avoid that threat mentioned in the Quran. And he said, عَيْنَانِ لَا تَمَسُّهُمَا النَّارُ أَبَدًا. There are two types of eyes the fire will never touch. عَيْنٌ بَكَتْ مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ. An eye that weeps out of the fear of Allah. He said, وَعَيْنٌ بَاتَتْ تَحْرُسُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And an eye that stays up at night, keeps itself awake, guarding the Muslims, meaning in a battle campaign, if you will, against dangers, if you will, that spends the night guarding in the path of Allah. And in another hadith of Abu Umama radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the Prophet ﷺ said, لا شيء أحب إلى الله من قطرتين وأثرين. There are no two things more beloved to Allah. There is nothing more beloved to Allah than two drops and two marks. As for the two drops, the qatratayn, he says, قطرة دمع من خشية الله. A drop, a teardrop. It is so valuable in Allah's eyes. A teardrop that you shed out of the fear of God, وَقَطْرَةُ دَمٍ تُحْرَاقُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And a drop of blood that is bled in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a wound. And he says, al-atharayn, as for the two marks, أَثَرُ حَافِرٍ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَأَثَرُ فَرِيضَةٍ مِّن فَرَائِدِ اللَّهِ. A mark that is placed on the ground by your horse in the path of Allah. He said, and a mark that is marked on your body because of one of the obligations Allah put on you. Maybe those marks, those calluses from sujood. Maybe those marks that will only appear on the Day of Judgment from wudu. The marks of fulfilling your obligations. And why does a person remember Allah and cry? Because their heart translating through the eyes. What is happening in the heart to cause someone to cry? What's generating these tears? At least one of three things you should be looking for. The fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will generate those tears. And that longing, that burning to meet Allah azza wa jal will generate those tears. And the feeling broken, feeling incomplete, feeling powerless in front of Allah, that humility should generate those tears. As for the fear of Allah azza wa jal, this in and of itself is two types. Some people think the fear of Allah is just the fear of Allah. The fear of Allah means it's one lump sum, you're afraid Allah's going to punish you and not care, and that's all. And this is not true. Because Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala said in the Quran, ذَلِكَ, this reward mentioned earlier in the ayah, لِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامِ وَخَافَ وَعِيدٍ. This is the reward for those who fear my standing, meaning they're intimidated by my greatness, my standing over them. Or the day my standing, meaning I will force them to stand in front of me. They fear my standing, وَخَافَ وَعِيدٍ, and they fear my threat. These are two different things. Fearing the standing of Allah, meaning when it dawns on you just how great Allah is, and it causes you to shudder, and causes you to realize how heedless you've been. As one of the early Muslims, he sat with himself and he tried to imagine what it would be like for Allah to stare down at the heedless creation, at the ghafla of humanity. And he wrote words of poetry that are supposed to be words as if Allah is saying them. And he said, عِبَادٌ أَعْرَضُ عَنَّا بِلَا جُرْمٍ وَلَا مَعْنَى. The slaves, look at the slaves, the human beings, the creation, that have turned away from us, completely ignoring, not serious about it at all, that have completely turned away from us, without any crime, without any reason. Allah never wronged them. There is no explanation for this. أَسَاءُوا ظَنَّهُمْ فِينَا لَيْتَهُمْ أَحْسَنُوا الظَّنَّ. People that assume the worst of us. It's as if Allah is saying they've assumed the worst of us, if only they had assumed better. وَإِنْ خَانُوا فَمَا خُنَّا وَإِنْ عَادُوا فَقَدْ عُدْنَا. He says, and if they betray us, it's as if Allah is saying, if they were to betray us time and time again, we were not like that. We never betray them. And if they come back to us, we have already come back. Clean slate. That causes a person to feel ashamed, to feel intimidated. He says, وَإِنْ كَانُوا قَدْ اسْتَغْنَوْا فَإِنَّا عَنْهُمُ أَغْنَى. And if they have no need for us, we have less of a need for them. He says, أَيُّهَا الْمُعْرِضُ عَنَّا إِنَّ أَعْرَاضَكَ مِنَّا لَوْ أَرَدْنَاكَ جَعَلْنَا كُلَّ مَا فِيكَ يُرِدْنَا. Oh, you who has turned away from us. Imagine, picture Allah saying this to you, right now as we speak. Oh, you who has turned away from us, who gives us the leftovers of your day. Oh, you who has turned away from us, your turning away was because of us. Had we wanted you, we would have made every ounce of you want us. So this person to feel that grandeur, that it consumes his life. As Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha said, I found the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam crying at night in sujood. The tears were flowing. What was the concept that was revolving in his head? That he was consumed by the greatness of Allah. She said he was crying in his sujood, in his prostration, and saying, وَأَعُوذُ بِرِضَاكَ مِنْ سَخَطِكَ. Oh Allah, I seek protection in your pleasure from your anger. وَبِمُعَافَاتِكَ مِنْ عُقُوبَتِكَ. And I'm hoping in your forgiveness to get away from your punishment. وَأَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْكَ لَا أُحْصِي ثَنَاءً عَلَيْكَ. And I seek refuge in you, from you. I can't praise you enough. I can't even realize how great you are. What is it that causes someone to be afraid of those that he considers so great? What causes people to be afraid, shy in front of celebrities among humanity? Because they may not know what causes them to be afraid, that shyness and that fear. It's because you're realizing how much control that person has on your heart. You're realizing how much influence they have, like you're just consumed by them. The second fear of Allah Azza wa Jal is the fear of Him punishing you. They say that if you would see Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah or Sufyan al-Thawri as well, وَكَأَنَّ النَّارَ لَمْ تُخْلَقْ إِلَّا لَهُمَا. It's as if the fire was not created except for those two. They said this about Al-Hasan and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. And they said, Sufyan, if you would see Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah at any given moment, it would be as if he just returned from a janazah of a relative, because of how saggy his eyelids were. And Mohammad ibn Wasi' rahimahullah, one of his peers, would say, whenever my heart became hard, my heart became rusty, I would go find Mohammad ibn Wasi' rahimahullah ta'ala, and it would come back to light. It would illuminate for another 7 days or so. I would draw from his fear of Allah to gain fear of Allah myself. And when they asked Al-Hasan, what is it that makes you cry? Then he said, أَخَافُ أَنْ يُلْقِينِي فِي النَّارِ وَلَا يُبَالِي. I fear that Allah just casts me into the fire and does not mind, that does not care. May Allah protect us and you from that. Allahumma ameen. And so fearing Allah's punishment. One of the early Muslims, he says, I used to travel with Abdullah ibn Mubarak. And Abdullah ibn Mubarak was like the Abu Bakr as-Siddiq of his time. He says, and I used to say to myself, he's just like us. What makes him so special? What makes him so respected? What makes him so revered among the people? What makes him so righteous and loved by all? He was a man that was blessed wherever he went. He said, I looked and I said, إِنَّهُ لَيُصَلِّي كَمَا نُصَلِّي وَيَصُومُ كَمَا نَصُومُ وَيَحُجُّ كَمَا نَحُجُّ وَنُجَاهِدُ كَمَا يُجَاهِدُ. We do everything he does. Prayer, fasting, hajj, going off and risking our lives. We do it all. He says, until one day when I was traveling with him, the winds blew and our lanterns got turned out. The suruj, the siraj, the lantern got put out in the middle of a dark night. There was no moon that night, he says. And when we turned some of the lights back on, the flames back on, وَجَدْنَا عُيُونَهُ تَسِيلُ بِالدُّمُوعِ. We found his eyes overflowing with tears. وَرُبَّمَا ذَكَرَ الْقِيَامَةَ فِي الظُّلْمَةِ. So we realized he must have been thinking about the day of judgment in the dark. That's the difference. That his heart was in that zone. His heart was ready. It was constantly rehearsing that day when the lights will go out. And people will be granted portions of light, some of them flickering lights, some of them no lights at all, to the degree of their deeds, to the proportion of their deeds. This is what the Prophet ﷺ told us was the generator of these fears. And he said, لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ مَا أَعْلَمُ. Anas radiallahu anhu said, he told us, and this is in Bukhari and Muslim, لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ مَا أَعْلَمُ لَضَحِكْتُمْ قَلِيلًا وَلَبَكَيْتُمْ كَثِيرًا. If you knew what I knew, meaning about the events of the hereafter, you would laugh little and you would cry much. You would laugh little and you would cry much. Meaning you need to start thinking about these events I'm telling you regularly. There's a reason why there's hardly a page in the Quran except that it refers to the Day of Judgment and Jannah, so that you would realize what would it be like to miss out on this. And the fire, what would it be like to be subjected to this if you knew what I knew. They approached one of the, I believe it was Ibn Uyayna rahimahullah, one night to call him for Salatul Fajr, and he would not respond to them. And they kept calling him, oh Imam, he would not respond to them. And they walked in on him, something happened. Yeah, Imam, we've been calling you. Where have you been? Meaning, where's your head? Like, where's your focus? What are you thinking about? They said to him, Aina kunt, where were you? And he said to them, As-Sirat. I was at the bridge crossing the hellfire. Meaning he sits there at night and he imagines it. He spends 4, 5, 6 hours some nights playing the scenes of what it's going to be like. From the grave, Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the great companion of our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he would hear about the grave, he would cry. And when they would talk about hellfire and paradise, he wouldn't cry as much. And so this was awkward to the Sahaba, to his students from the Tabi'een. And they said to him, how come you cry at the grave, but you don't cry regarding paradise and the hellfire? He said to them, our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to us, إِنَّ الْقَبْرَ أَوَّلُ مَنْزِلَةٍ مِنْ مَنَازِلِ الْآخِرَةِ. The grave is the very first stage of the hereafter. whomever it's easy for, everything after it will be easier. And whomever it's difficult for, everything after it will be more difficult. Meaning, this is what I'm thinking about. That moment when I'm going to find out what the rest of eternity is going to be like. That is what generates tears. That is what will prevent you from the fears on the Day of Judgment, to be afraid here. And this is the first of the three and the most common of the three reasons for a person to be tearful, tender-hearted, ready to cry, those tears that are so valuable to Allah Azza wa Jal. To be at heart, translated by the eyes, the way He wants you. سبحانه وتعالى. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ونبيه ورسوله. And there are many things that will get between a person and between being of those who remembers Allah alone and his eyes overflow with tears. Being that seventh category. Of them is everything that hardens your heart. Like breaking your promises to Allah Azza wa Jal. And He said about Banu Israel in Surah Al-Ma'idah, فَبِمَا نَقْضِهِمْ مِيثَاقَهُمْ لَعَنَّاهُمْ وَجَعَلْنَا قُلُوبَهُمْ قَاسِيَةً. Because they broke their covenants with us, we cursed them and we made their hearts hard. And also the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا مَلَأَ ابْنَ آدَمَ وِعَاءً شَرٌّ مِّن بَطْنِهِ. The son of Adam, the human being, never fills a vessel worse for him than his stomach. Overeating has horrible health benefits, but the greater danger to overeating, to filling your stomach as the norm, is the spiritual coma it puts you in. Al-Fudayl rahimahullah, he says, خَصْلَتَانِ تُقَسِّيَانِ الْقَلْبِ كَثْرَةُ الطَّعَامِ وَكَثْرَةُ الْأَكْلِ كَثْرَةُ الطَّعَامِ وَكَثْرَةُ الْكَلَامِ. He said, eating too much and speaking too much are two qualities. It can happen one-off. But when it becomes your quality, your heart cannot melt in this state. Because this is someone who has jumped head first into focus on this world, the luxury of this world. They will not be able to have the scenes of the hereafter unveiled. And you all know this by experience. And Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, when he was asked, أَيَرِقُّ الْقَلْبُ مَعَ الشِّبَعِ قَالَ لَا أَرَى. He said to them, they asked him, can a person's heart be tender on a full stomach? He said, I don't see how that's possible. And also of the things that will soften your heart is mercy to the weak and the vulnerable. When they went to the Prophet ﷺ and they said to him, we complain to you that we're rough people, we're not used to crying, we weren't raised like that. How do we soften our hearts? He said, visit the graveyard, the most vulnerable person out there. There's no person that is more vulnerable than those in the graveyards. And he said, وَامْسَحْ رَأْسَ الْيَتِيمِ, and wipe the head of the orphans. You know, the orphans, the weak and the broken, they give you that category. Remember, we said fear, we said longing, and we said brokenness. Being with those that are broken, giving them from your compassion, you will get from their brokenness. You will benefit from them more than they will benefit from you. You will benefit them emotionally, and you will benefit from them spiritually. And you got the better end of that bargain. And at the end of the day, it's about working for it. And it's about not tricking yourself. You know, Muhammad ibn Wasi', who I cited earlier, has a beautiful quote regarding crying. That do not trick yourself. And he would say, لَيْسَ الْخَائِفُ مَنْ بَكَى وَعَصَرَ عَيْنَيْهِ وَلَكِنَّ الْخَائِفَ مَنْ تَرَكَ مَا يَخَافُ أَنْ يُعَذَّبَ عَلَيْهِ. Don't trick yourself. Don't sell yourself some crocodile tears. You're not pretending to the people, but what if you're pretending to yourself? Be careful. He says the one that is fearful is not the one that cries and rinses every last tear out of his eyes, squeezes out every last drop. He said the one that really fears Allah is the one that abandons the thing he's afraid to be punished because of. What does it mean that a person come into the masjid and cry when he hears a passionate story, or cry in his dua in witr, and go back doing the exact same things he's done before? Is that someone who's afraid, or is that someone appeasing his conscience? And Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah used to say, al-buka'u 'ashratu ajza'. Crying, genuine crying for Allah, that valuable one, that treasure. He said that there's 10 different kinds of crying. Look how much attention they gave this in their lives. They understood its worth. He says there are 10 different kinds. وَاحِدَةٌ مِّنْهُنَّ لِلَّهِ. Just one of those 10 is for Allah. And 9 are not for Allah. You may presume them to be for Allah, but they're not really for Allah. وَلَوْ جَاءَتْ هَذِهِ الْوَاحِدَةِ مَرَّةً فِي الْعَامِ لَهِيَ كَثِيرًا, he says. And if that one time out of the 10% of your crying that comes for Allah, if you're able to pull it out of you once a year, that's a lot. Consider yourself fortunate. Thank Allah for that and hide it. Anything you do in public, consider it nothing. Consider it, I could have been crying because the people around me are crying. I could have been crying because the story was emotional. Is it for Allah? Hide it if it comes. And the very last thing to be said, my brothers, this is 1:30 now. The early Muslims knew and valued the tenderness of heart that Allah wanted from them. They would travel to the farthest corners of the earth for it. And time will not allow us to cite examples of this. But look at yourself. If you, may Allah forbid, were diagnosed with a disease that could end your life, your physical life, your worldly life, your body, how far would you go seeking the cure? And now after you've heard the khutbah, how far will you go to tenderize your heart a bit? To make it soft, fearful of God, compassionate with His creation. What will you invest in that? That's what they used to do. And wallahi, if you do what they did, Allah will not deprive you. He will not deprive you of that state. That tear that washes away your past, or washes away the rust within, washes away our crimes, re-infuses us with that spiritual energy that will carry us forward and keep us on the path. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to protect us from an eye that does not tear. As our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would say, وَأَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ عَيْنٍ لَا تَدْمَعُ. Oh Allah, I seek protection in you from an eye that doesn't tear, and I ask Allah to give us eyes that tear for the right reasons, and to protect us from the humility, from the fear of hypocrisy, to make our fear of Him genuine, and to make it consistent in public and in private. And I ask Allah to forgive us of our sins, and to brace us in our shortcomings. And may Allah make what is remaining of all our lives better than the past. And the very best day of our lives, the day that we stand in front of Him and are reunited with Him and join with His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and all the prophets and messengers in the highest gardens of Jannah. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma aghfir lana warhamna. Allahumma aghfir lana warhamna. Wa ila ghayrika la takilna. Na'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa' wa qalbin la yashba' wa nafsin la tashba' wa 'aynin la tadma' ودعاء لا يستجاب له ودعاء لا يستجاب له ودعاء لا يستجاب له. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم وارحم الأموات. اللهم انصر الإسلام وعز المسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين. اللهم اهدنا واهد بنا واجعلنا سببا لمن اهتدى. إله الحق غفرانك ربنا. اللهم اغفر لنا. اللهم هب لنا عملا صالحا يقربنا إليك. تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على خاتم النبيين وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا.